your host Chris B. Hoping all is well with you and yours.
Brr, 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 brr.
Yeah, got to. Here, my brother, Pastor Macho Lara, talking about his new book, Control Alt Believe. Macho, what's good, man? Welcome to the podcast.
Yo, just we out here on these streets still grieving the Knicks loss, but
Ah, that's
uh,
real. That's real, man. City was on fire. It was a wonderful time. I'm living in Virginia now, so even down here, I've run into like my fellow New Yorkers in exile, and we cope and we grieve.
you said New Yorkers in exile.
We commiserate about all that's going on, especially with Tibbs getting fired. That was a curveball too, man. But
Yeah. I mean, it was a fun year. This is the first year that I honestly made the decision that I'm going to root for a team and watch basketball.
yeah.
So, and people would ask me, "Are you a fan yet?" I'm like, "Look, I'm rooting for the team. Give me the whole year, so I
Uh-huh.
could experience it all." And unfortunately, I experienced the highs and the
You get
lows.
the
And
lows. You get the lows, man. Like it's the most fun I've had with the Knicks probably in 30 years. But it just really, I don't feel like it was a disappointment by any means. I mean, I hate losing to the Pacers. God knows I hate losing to the Pacers.
oh,
But getting to the conference finals, like I've been saying it, bro. Like this the first time we've been to the conference finals since I was getting invited to like bar and bar mitzvahs. So I'm not mad. You know what I mean? I'm not mad at all. Yeah, for sure, man. But before we go into the book, just take us back to what was going on in your life when this idea hit you. This idea of control alt believe.
Yeah, so it's interesting because the idea of control alt belief, that in and of itself was actually more recent. I think broader, it's this idea of faith, what faith has looked like in my journey and in Erica's journey
Mm-hmm.
and during our life. You and I became connected because of our time in Brooklyn, and that us transitioning into Brooklyn was a huge faith step for us.
Of course.
Um, and we've had a few different things in our lives, and more recently in our church community, we have a lady in our church community, and I was recently remembering a conversation that we were having, and she's just asking me like, well, how did you get to the point where you were willing to make a faith step like that? So this broader idea of faith and how it's been a journey of faith was really the idea. It was like the big idea, but I didn't really know how to lean into it,
Right.
nor did I have a plan to, for a variety of reasons. Maybe we can unpack that. I can go talk a lot, but I'll let you lead any questions about that.
Yeah. So it's really, I guess what it lends me to think is like, is this sort of like how to fix your faith book, or more of a how to sit with your faith when it's broken book?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely not a 10 steps to fix your faith.
Got you. Got you. Got you.
It's not that in with any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's more about learning to be present in the moments where your faith feels broken,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the moments where your faith gets challenged. Second Corinthians talking about my grace is sufficient for you. Like, what does that look like when you're literally on a hospital bed, right? Like,
Right. Come
you
on.
you and I have experienced that.
No doubt about it.
And it's just, there's not going to be a formula in there. There's a lot of questions that I explore. It's about learning how to be present and honest with God,
Mm-hmm.
and not hiding what's going on underneath.
Right. That makes a ton of sense. There's that sort of vulnerability with God.
Mhm.
Right there with you. Right there with you.
Not pretending. The Greek word aletheia, which
Mm-hmm.
is not hidden.
Right. Right.
We just gonna, like, this is what I'm struggling with, and we're gonna dive into that.
But I love that because I think that challenges a lot of the ways in which church and sort of like mainstream American Christianity has really presented faith. I don't think it's really giving people a lot of space for that kind of vulnerability. I think
Mhm.
people feel like they have to be in control of their faith and they have to sort of be almost participating in this whole presentation. And I really would love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, why do you think churches often make people feel like they have to be in control of their faith rather than acknowledging that they're on this sort of faith journey?
Yeah, I mean, I would wonder if the different church expressions and the different denominations and different streams would probably yield a different experience as it comes to that. I've certainly been in Nazarene, Pentecostal, CMA, non-denominational. I've been in a few different streams, and I think that sometimes what I'll say, not to cast aspersions or anything, churches would at the very least unintentionally teach people that faith equates or equals certainty.
Yeah.
That if you're struggling, it leads you to wonder, is it because I did something wrong? Like,
For sure.
and we know the scriptures. We know the scriptures like, is it because of the sin of his parents and all that stuff? Like, we know that scripturally, but when it comes to our lives, it kind of feels different. And I think that sometimes that can lead to control in a way that we have to start managing our emotions.
Yeah.
We need to start presenting a certain way. We need to start managing our theology, even our doubts, because what's going to happen if we don't manage our emotions?
Come on.
Where's that going to lead to? But what I've learned in my journey is that faith is not about control. It's about trust.
Yeah.
And sometimes it means, and it looks like walking through the dark. Like, what does it mean to trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding? So yeah, I mean, I think in this book, I explore how the desire for control shaped my own spiritual journey, like early on.
Right.
And for me, how letting go of that became, in some ways, the beginning of something that was more honest, more alive, and I would even say more attuned to what Jesus invites us into.
Come on. No, I love that. I love that. Because with that, I think there's a lot of understanding that has to happen, a lot of learning that has to happen, but also a lot of unlearning, right? Because to your point, even if it's not malicious, there's a lot of stuff that can kind of junk up our understanding of what faith actually is. So, what's one thing that you think you had to unlearn about your relationship with God?
Man, that's good. I'm sitting here and I'm getting a little bit emotional, honestly, on the fly,
No doubt.
because I'm looking at a picture of someone from our church community that passed away not that long ago, and I just got a little emotional, and I talk about her in the book, in the last chapter, and it correlates to what I was thinking about. I had to unlearn the idea that God meets us only when we have things all together.
Ooh.
The reality is, God meets us in the wilderness.
Right.
God meets us in the silence.
Yeah.
God meets us in the hospital room. God meets us on the hospice bed.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just getting emotional because I remember conversations I had with her, like literally at the end, and just seeing God be present in the midst of those conversations.
No question.
So yeah, God is near to the brokenhearted.
Yeah. And think about the ways in which a lot of church traditions don't really give people the latitude to have that kind of vulnerability. Like it is more than okay to have an emotional response to this. Like, I don't think like the church in the West has overvalued stoicism for so long and conflates it with this understanding of strength. But I think the model and the example of Jesus is one that shows us strength demonstrated through vulnerability more than anything else. And it's just
Yeah.
ways that we think we have to be that God isn't calling us to be, that God actually, makes his strength shown through our weakness. Um, so with that being said, like, how were you able to give yourself permission to write honestly, to just like really be vulnerable with your writing?
It's funny because so for a long time, I actually wanted Erica and I to co-write a book together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted us to kind of do it, but honestly, I kind of used that as an excuse to not actually do it. It was
Yeah,
like procrastination in a
yeah,
way, and it was I have two other friends of mine and coworkers that we have a voice text thread, and it was that like, oh, I had these kind of thoughts, and let me just kind of put pen to paper. um, and I remember asking Erica in February, all right, so do you want to write this book with me or not?
yeah,
Like, no. And
yeah.
stop using me as an excuse. Just go ahead and write the thing.
Yeah,
What I realized when I talk about this in the book. I've been recently diagnosed with multiple sclerosis,
got you.
and it actually impacts my left hand, in how much I can type,
Yeah,
and even when I play guitar and sensitivity. So I'm a tech person. So I actually narrated pretty much all of my book. I have like probably 35 hours worth of me just talking. And then I was able to kind of clean it up.
for sure.
So there's a lot of stuff in my journey that I think I realized as I was doing the process of the book. Oh, this is actually how I communicate. Like, I communicate honestly. So it translated into the book just because of the way that I live. I think I've lived through stuff that you just can't fake the funk. You just can't put up a facade. I got to a point 20 years ago in my spiritual journey that I realized the beauty of not living in hiddenness.
Come on.
And the reality is, I think you get to a point, I think there's an invitation in the journey where honesty becomes the only faithful option. So when I think of people that might be reading, whether it's what I write or what you write or what people kind of put out there, I don't think people need polish. I think people need presence, is what I think people
Yeah,
need. Um, and I think that what people are looking for is for someone that's been there, someone that knows, that experiences. Like, I understand. Sympathy is great. Empathy feels different. It's like you understand my pain.
right.
So that's the kind of pursuit and posture that I've taken. And even after I wrote the manuscript, I've started writing in Substack and kind of things of that nature, and kind of putting some stuff out there. And that's really all that I try to do. I'm not trying to clean up my mess. I'm trying to show you, like, there's a part in the book, not to kind of go too much into it, where
All
Jesus,
good.
is talking, like, Thomas is like, yo, is that really you? And Jesus is like, look, here's my wounds. Touch,
Right.
touch there. So, like that's a model for me. That is like, he just went through the lowest of lows, and he's not like, let me put some death becomes her, magic on this and kind of hide it. He's like, no,
Yeah.
boom. That's my wound. That's my scar.
Come on.
And there's a tension, but I think there's a beauty, because I think Jesus meets us there.
Oh, for sure. No doubt about it. How man, that's such a healing word you just offered, because I agree. I don't think people want challenge. I think, Mantra, I think that we're in a space where people are almost turned off by polish. I think if it's too put together, they kind of don't want anything to do with it because it doesn't feel attainable. I feel like for far too long we've used this sort of model, not just within the church, but just within culture, of this sort of like hero that is unattainable. And I think that right now we are in a season where people need to be inspired to see courageous acts from ordinary people.
Mhm.
And I would just love to know, what role did silence and what role did scripture play in your healing journey?
Silence is not always comfortable, right? Sometimes silence sucks. Like, I'm like, and that's part of my journey as well. Like in the book, I talk about like what happens like when you feel like God is not there.
Right,
When
right.
when you like Psalm 13, I think it's Psalm 13, and with many other scriptures. How long, O Lord,
Right.
will you forget me forever?
Come on.
Like Jesus feeling, why have you forsaken me?
Right, right, right,
So I think those scriptures, I align them with those silence moments. Like, it's not comfortable, but I think that the silence for me it wasn't always, but it became an invitation to explore what it was that I was feeling. Often it was lament. Like I needed to go through a journey of lament. I think scripture gives language to what I was feeling. I think scripture reminds me I'm not crazy. Like Jesus went through this. Jesus felt abandonment. The Psalms, like, it's in there.
Chock full of it. Chock full of it.
I'm like, and it's not just one song. I'm like, yo, these fools are persecuting me. Like, what's going on? Where you at? So yeah. Yeah, I think that they both work together. And I think that they formed me and continue to form me. Because these moments of silence still come up from time to time. I think God sometimes is like, Macho, I think you need a little bit of a timeout. Little silence. Go sit in the corner, process your stuff, feel your feels, and I got something to show you. So
yeah. Just hold it down for a little bit. I'm with that. So knowing all of that and all that you just articulated, all that you've gone through, challenges, um, being with people, holding space with them at the end, your own health journey. What does belief look like for you now?
Belief. I would say, just paralleling that journey of trust and dependence in a God who is present in the midst of my suffering.
Right.
The trust in a God who is present with me in the midst of my crash, in the midst of my life failure. And knowing that belief is more about that level of trust and not about me performing to a preconceived notion of what being a follower of Jesus should look like. Belief is going to look less about me needing to defend a particular theological position, right? And it's more about me staying open to the grace of Jesus in the moments when things don't make sense. Not if, but when they don't make sense, right? I have been learning and on a lifelong journey of learning that I don't need to know all the answers. I mean, I'm a pastor now, church planner, and I tell folks sometimes, I'm like, look, I don't have all of the answers to your questions. It's not about that. It's about being present. It's about having the confidence in what we hope for. It's about having the assurance about we do not see. It's that Hebrews thing. That's the kind of belief that I wake up every day wanting to hold on to. It's quiet. It's persistent because it needs to be. And ultimately, I want my belief to be rooted and not shaken.
I just gotta let that breathe for a little bit because I think that so much of what you're articulating is an understanding, if not a commitment to the process that is so scary at the beginning. I don't think, and we see this in scripture all the time, like God will give someone a word and it will be years, if not decades, until that word is fulfilled in the natural. And so there's so many moments to be like, yo, God, did you forget what you said? Like, how could you give me this dream? I'm gonna be a leader, and now I'm in a pit. Like, how could you give me this vision? And you know, the king want to take my wife. like all these different ways that it goes left. So I just want to know, like, in what ways do you feel like God is surprising you on your faith journey?
You know, so the surprise, and this is how I would answer it, because on the one side we could say surprise and God could be like, yo, this was the plan all along, right? You know, so we get surprised and God's just like, yo, I was just waiting for you, like, to just, you know. So there have been, you know, I referenced earlier our journey to come from Atlanta to Brooklyn, which is the church plant that you and I were part of. That was just a huge, not a huge, that was a series of things that necessitated faith in action for us to kind of step in. And I think whether you say, you know, the way God surprised me or the way I was just like, yo, boom. But it was on the earthly side, it was surprising because there was no way, you know, I teach Excel now. There is no Excel formula that I can come up with right now to define how our finances worked back then. It should not have happened at all. I had $1,000 a month was what I got paid for a part-time job. We had a family of 4, and somehow God showed up. Boom, 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 boom. Like, you know, but it's not just the pragmatic ways. I think it's the deeper stuff that also happens. There's a story that Chris, I don't know the last time you would have heard this story, but I shared it several times. There's something that happened in Brooklyn shortly after we moved to Brooklyn, and it's a story that kind of marked me internally. I do write about it in the book, shameless plug. But I mean, we talk about it in the book, but I talk about this several times. And we're walking up Kingston. This is like 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm pushing Elias at that time. He's a year and 9 months in a stroller. Eliana's about to turn 4. And we coming up on Kingston and Prospect. And cops are putting evidence tags at 3:30 in the afternoon as we're walking north. And I'm like, oh, you know, boom, I'm oblivious. And I find out shortly after that, like about 5 minutes, between 5 and 10 minutes before we walked in that direction, there was a guy chasing someone else coming in this direction, and he was just shooting as he was chasing, right? So we were 5 to 10 minutes away from being in a crossfire.
Oh yeah.
And all of a sudden, my sense of security and control went poof.
Oh.
And I had to process that. And as I was processing that, I've never heard the audible voice of God, right? But I've had a sense in my spirit of God talking to me. And what I felt God asked me was, do you trust me to take care of your kids better than you can?
Come on.
And when I processed that, like talking about faith and honesty, my response to God was, honestly, no. I'm not living like I trust you to take care of my kids. I'm living like it's my responsibility. It's on me to take care of my kids' safety. It's on me to take care of my finances. It's on me to take care of our next steps as a family in ministry, of my next job. It's on me. That was our first 3 months of living in Brooklyn was when that happened. And that's something that I've carried. So, you know, not surprise, you know, I'm kind of tweaking your question a little bit, but that's been the biggest lesson in this season of life that I've continued to take. And God keeps showing up. He's like, yo, remember, it's not on you. Like, do you trust me to do this more than you? And I'm like, I made this decision. I started, and oftentimes when I'm most anxious, when I'm most stressed, is because of that right there. Because I'm trusting that I can do it better than God can do it. And when I do that, then I become anxious. Then I become stressed. Then I become freaked out and all that kind of stuff. And that's been faith and journey. Come on.
I'm preaching for real, like. No, but for real though, because it's like, I love that honesty, where you know you were like, nah, I don't live like I trust you. I don't live like it's up to you. I live like it's up to me. And I think
so. Now, what do you do with that, right?
Right.
Because it could be up here. We can have this realization up here, but faith without works is dead. Like faith is a journey, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this part over here, but I'm like, okay, God loves you enough to, okay, you got that understanding, but that's baby steps. We gotta walk it out. We got, we gotta walk this faith out. So now that I have this understanding, what are the steps? What are the actions? What does my journey look like to now put boots to the ground to that faith?
That's it.
Sorry.
No apologies.
Yeah.
It really is on point like that, because there's so many spaces where faith just ends up being a nice idea.
Mm-hmm.
And faith just ends up as a theory rather than lived out practice. Like I tell my boys all the time, like, it don't matter what you say you gonna do as much as it matters what you gonna do. So like I can tell you I'm a really, really nice person. Trust me much, I'm nice. But if I'm never living out a particular kind of kindness, it don't matter how much I talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
What are you actually going to do? So I really appreciate you lifting that up. How has writing this book changed you?
I'm still processing change, right? The changed word is probably something that I'm still processing. I think there's things that it revealed about me.
That's fair.
Whenever you have a passion project, there's probably a component that is like, I didn't realize that I could actually do this. So that part of it, the pragmatic thing, I think the process of writing, whether it's book or even like writing after, has been a journey of having an outlet to communicate truth and grace in a way, and I'll say it this way, in a way that doesn't throw people under the bus, right?
Ooh, say more about that though. That's really good. People need
Because one of the challenges is, like, I've gone through stuff in my life that has been challenging stuff that is connected to other individuals, is connected to other people, right? How do I communicate that truth, that grace, those scars, that story in a way that is honest,
right?
but also does not bring someone else's perspective or kind of stuff? Because this is my healing. This is my journey. This is what God's done in my life. And it was a dance in some of those stories and some of those things. It was, but I was able to hold it in a way that I believe is holy, is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to say, so the manuscript part, that first part, that was like a rush. And it was a rush because I was doing it verbally mostly.
Right.
Right. So I'm telling you, I would say that my text thread with my two friends really, really helped us out, because we do voice memos all the time, and we'll easily drop 15-minute voice memos like nothing.
Oh yeah, you're the king of voice memos. Like
Yeah. I like, and this is like sermon. So we are talking. We live in 3 different places, but we always hear each other's voice.
Yeah.
So that was easy. Last week, I went on a trip to Mexico, and it was the first time that I went back to it because I wanted to have a submission-ready manuscript.
Come on.
So I went line by line meticulously last week, reading it, and that process for me was probably more arduous than actually writing it, because then I was like, Dad, like God really did some stuff in my life.
Yeah, man.
So it was healing in a different way, and it's a good reminder. Like, so like whether you're writing for yourself or, Erica, she's a great journaler. She journals. I don't really journal.
Gotcha.
But like I've gotten into writing a little bit more, and it's good reminder of what God's done and where God's taken you and the hope that's yet to come.
Oh, for sure. I love that you've talked a bit about your writing routine. Like, so when you're, speaking into the manuscript, and I love that you've articulated that writing and editing are definitely different practices. Writing 101, don't edit while you write, just write. But talk to us a bit about your routine. Like, when did you want to start writing? Like, where did you feel like you were able to most comfortably write? Just like, was it something where you needed to like be in front of your computer? Was the phone a good way to record? Like, all of that stuff. Take us through the mechanics.
For the book, it was like I said, it was the voice kind of note kind of stuff. But I think that as I've started, so let me put a pin on that. The way that the book is written and the way that I write, like my Substack, kind of posts and blog and stuff, is very much how I preach. Like I write my manuscripts when I'm preaching. I'm very conversational. So what I realized as I was writing the book and as I've been starting to write a little bit more blogs, is that it's very much conversational to how, so if you go on our church's podcast and you listen to a sermon, how I write the book is very much my cadence and my flow. I'm pausing, I'm creating all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But certainly when I write for sermon or when I write for blogs, there's a coffee shop that I have. It's kind of early morning. I'm with music on, and usually it's because I have a sermon theme and topic. Like we have a sermon series that we're kind of going on, so I know more or less where I'm going. Or there's just something in my spirit that I just needed to talk about. Like, you know, I was just in Mexico. I came back, and you know, stuff is popping off in the country. So, you know, you got to speak truth to power in a way that's, and me, when I write that stuff, you know, this is going back to an earlier question. You know, I'm not writing to defend theological positions.
Right.
I'm going to scripture. I'm like, what does Jesus speak to all of this stuff? What is the Bible saying? And all I'm doing is I'm just talking about the Bible. I'm just talking about scripture, you know, because at the end of the day, like our church's mission is we exist to make disciples that increasingly live like Jesus for the sake of the world. So that's what I'm about. I'm not here to stand on a soapbox to kind of do. So when I write, when I do that, that is the posture, that is the angle. There's a verse, and hold up, because I have it written here. Hold up, I gotta pull it up. Ecclesiastes 11:6. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle. Right. So like that, it kind of in a way is a framework to write imperfectly, but at the same time faithfully.
Yes.
How can I be a faithful steward of what God is calling me to, this assignment to shepherd this community? Like I don't engage in hot topic stuff. I rarely do that because that's other people's lanes that are called to that. But from time to time, I will drop something. But when I do that, whether it's a sermon or a blog, it's just to be faithfully stewarding this thing in an honest way. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So you're not looking for the trending topic, but I'm gonna talk about this today. You're not doing all that.
I mean, I've learned in my writing, like, yo, I could actually do this, yo. Like I had a publisher, which is, you know, if my avenue for trying to get this book out there works out, right, then it would be this particular publisher, and they said to me, like, look, whether you work with us or with someone else, just get this out there because it is evident that you are called to do this. And that's something else that I've learned in this process, that I'm capable of faithfully stewarding this and communicating it out in a way that would be received. So yeah, all of that stuff.
That's a blessing, man. And you talked about getting this book out. Part of the way that you're working toward that is by crowdfunding this particular text. So what surprises have encountered you while raising money for this project?
Number one, that is hard.
Yeah.
It is not easy. It is not easy. I mean, you might remember that I did a crowdfunding campaign for the worship project that I did.
Yeah. Definitely remember that.
2017. That one was a successful crowdfunding campaign. And I am hoping and praying that this one is also a successful crowdfunding campaign.
Oh, for sure,
right?
For sure.
So I will say that. You know, crowdfunding, as with church planting, so I will make a statement about church planting that a friend of mine, a church planting friend, said that he was surprised when he was planting a church that the people that were there year 3 were not the people that he expected would be there. And the people that he thought were going to be there were nowhere to be found. Right? So there are some of those surprises in the people that are, you know, kind of backing the campaign. I also know that there's also, you know, ignorance not in the you ignorant. No, not ignorance in the not knowing the information, right? And how crowdfunding, because different crowdfunding sources work differently. I went the route of Kickstarter because for me, it's always been an all or nothing thing, and it's intentional because the route that I'm going to try to get this book out there has dollars and cents to it to work with a hybrid publisher. So I don't want to go. What's this other one? GoFundMe, right? That GoFundMe avenue is if you get, anything that people contribute to that, like that comes in, right? I don't want to get 80% of the way of the funds, and then I'm like, we didn't make it all the way, and and then I gotta come in with $2,000 and get it, So for me, it's an all or nothing thing. Like we either gonna get all of it, and if we meet our goal on June 30th, then all of those pledges are processed, and then we kind of move forward. And if not, then we'll kind of do a different thing. I've been surprised by people's generosity, people that I didn't expect. I've been sharing stories about the book. I've started sharing quotes online on social media. And my angle has been like, look, it's, for some people, it's like I'm supporting because I want to copy the book. But for me, it's like this story, I believe wholeheartedly that this book is going to bless people. Anyone that picks up the book, I'm confident that you're going to get something out of it. And that's what I want for this Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, I love that. What's your advice to someone, especially a creative, who's afraid to tell their truth? They're hearing this and they're inspired by you, but they're like, I'm so nervous about telling my truth.
I'll start by saying this. I've had moments in my life in which my wife knew that God was inviting us to take a particular step, to do something. And one of the things that was a barrier to that was the fear of what will other people think?
Yeah.
What will other people say? That's maybe the biggest voice in some of those decisions was that. But and I will put a caveat, right? Because there are some things that maybe you shouldn't share. There are some things. So be careful. Be a good steward of your story.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Because we live in the Me Too era. In the I feel jaded, so I'm just gonna let it out there, right? So I'm not on the side that would say share everything, because I don't think that everything is for public consumption. That being said, when it comes to some of those things, you gotta tell it. It might shake some things.
Right.
It might make some people feel uncomfortable. But there is someone out there who is grasping for air, for whom your story and honesty will feel like oxygen. And for someone, your story might just be the permission someone else needs. So yeah, that's what I would say to that. But again, with the big caveat, like just steward it well. I was having a conversation yesterday with someone who was just wrestling with should I say something, should I not say something, should I open, should I, and I say, like, you got to check your motivations internally. Like, why am I sharing this? Am I, and even with like hot button issues, like, why am I gonna post this? Am I gonna post this just because I want this to be a gotcha moment? I want this to be like, I'm gonna stick it to the man, whatever. So there's an internal journey. Like, why is it that you're telling the story? And if it's a story, or if it's something that's gonna make people uncomfortable, that's gonna be hard, and you still gotta say it,
Yeah.
but steward it well.
That's real.
So I just.
No, I hear that. Because I think hearing that, especially in this age of social media, where people want to make it as a content creator, people want to make it as a personality online. There is absolutely a temptation to tell everything, and it has to be a constructive thing, right? Because some things, some aspects of us are half baked. So if I, just think about like this platform. If I get on here and say every new idea without letting it breathe, without letting it mature, I can do so much more harm than good. Especially, being a space where I'm trying to help people, learn how to live peaceably with each other, help people live in multicultural communities, help people live with a sense of dignity and appreciation for who God made them and how God made other people. If I'm just out here just throwing out the first thought that comes to mind, I can do so much more harm than good. So, to your point, you gotta let it breathe sometimes.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you can't be so afraid to say the thing that's bold and courageous.
Oh yeah,
You get up here and all you say are things that are like ineffective entirely. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Like, wait, then go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a both and.
For real. For real. I'm with that. I'm with that. I'm really with that. Absolutely, man. So, man, when you're writing, do you have a certain playlist going, or a certain kind of music you like while you write, or you want dead silence?
So no, so there's and some people laugh at me. There's one soundtrack that is my go-to soundtrack.
Talk to me.
It's the Tron Legacy soundtrack, bro.
Not what I expected at all.
That's, that is my
I feel
that is
you.
my soundtrack. Now I start in because I just love, like, what is it, Daft Punk or Draft Punk,
Yeah, Daft Punk. Daft Punk. Yeah, yeah.
Daft Punk. And then they have the extended one that it just keeps going,
Yeah,
and it puts me in a zone. So that one, and then the second to that, when I'm doing sermons, sometimes it's an instrumental. Again, it's an older one. It's by New Life Worship, but it's an instrumental album that they have. I mean, I know that we ain't really doing the. It's called Soak, SOAK, Soak,
okay.
by New Life Worship. So that album and the Tron Legacy, the original motion picture soundtrack, those two are the two that are my go-to.
I'm not mad at that though. I'm really not mad at that. That's all right. It's unexpected but Daft Punk is fire. I can't even hold you. Daft Punk is fire, so I understand. But like, it just when you said Tron Legacy, I was like, oh word. That's tough. That's tough. Man, who prays for you when you can't pray for yourself?
I mean, I know Erica prays for me. You know, she's a journaler, and that's how she prays. And, especially more recently, with the MS stuff,
Yeah, man.
she definitely held it down at home. I know that my mother prays. My mom's a praying person, so I know that as well. And I would say that friends and mentors of mine
Absolute.
have definitely, and it's been in different seasons, right? I know that I have family that prays for me. My sisters, my siblings, my in-laws. I know that Erica's parents also pray for me as well. So yeah.
Nah, I love that because one of my like enduring memories of both you and Erica is one time when I was at church in Brooklyn. I didn't know I was going into a flare. I just knew I didn't feel good, and I just saw like I was sitting like I can remember I was sitting like in the back left side of the auditorium, and like I saw you and Erica kind of like look at each other. Y'all looked at me, and y'all looked back at each other. It's like y'all just ran up on me and prayed for me.
Yeah.
I
That
mean,
was at Pier 705, right?
yes, exactly. That's where it was. That's exactly where it was. And I remember just feeling so cared for in that moment. And like I trusted y'all, so I knew y'all weren't gonna jump me or nothing. But like it was
Thank you.
y'all look at each other, look at me, look at each other. But just those moments like that, man, just it stays with me. I just grateful.
I mean, it's the image of the friends that lowered the person down to the house.
Yeah, straight up.
To Jesus is like that. Who's gonna be that for you when you can't be that for yourself?
That's a real spill. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I love that, man. Yeah. So, what's your hope for this book ultimately, man?
I mean, my hope is that this would be a guide for some people on their journey of faith. Like I hope that people can read it and feel the reminder that they're not alone, and that like where they're at. The book talks essentially about what happens when life crashes, right? But here's the reality: life crashes a lot.
Right.
Like we feel that crash a lot. So the journey after that crash, when it comes to faith, it's almost cyclical. And sometimes you kind of pick it up like this, and then something else happens, and you gotta, like this kind of. But the reality is that Jesus is present in the midst of all of that, and it's Jesus is present in our doubts.
Right.
Jesus is present in our questions, and the reality and existence of those doubts and questions do not disqualify us.
Come on, right.
And that God is not disappointed in our doubts. Like Jacob wrestled with God, and that's a reality that I hope people don't forget about. That I want people to remember. If you feel that you're at a wall, like you don't have to climb it right now. Like you might be at a wall, and that's okay. You don't have to strive. You don't have to just breathe. Like stay. Like sometimes just being there and acknowledging the pain, sometimes that is the most sacred act that you can do. Be still and know that I am God.
Real spill.
Like you might not be able to move. You might be frozen. Like you might be having a trauma response, a spiritual trauma response.
Right.
That's okay. You have permission to do that. Sometimes we want to rush to the altar. I hope some people realize that sometimes the wall is the altar.
Let that breathe. Let that breathe for real, though.
Sometimes the wall might be the place where the truest and most honest worship begins.
Real.
Like I'm trying to live more open and more honest. Again, I referenced that Greek word aletheia. you know, like we are called to be children of the light, not children of the darkness. You know, like living in a not hidden state. So, anyways, that's like those are some. I could go on, but those are like high level hopes that I hope that I have for people when they read this book.
Oh man, I love that. Love that for real, man. So how can we support you, man? How can we support the book?
So number one, like sharing the Kickstarter, right? So getting the word out there. This is what I'll say. You know, I'm going this route. Not, you know, when it comes to publishing, you're either on this side, which is you have name recognition, you got 200,000 followers, people know you. A traditional publisher comes to you. We're gonna do this book, right?
Right.
I'm not there. You have self-publishing, which is like, I have this book, I'm gonna upload it on Amazon, print on demand. That's always an option, right?
No doubt.
If that were an option, I'm confident in the material that I have right now. I have a full manuscript that's 260 some pages, 61,244 words, that's ready to go. That said, I'm going this hybrid route because I believe in the professionalism and the ability for a professional editor to take this and just finesse it, bring it to the level that it's going to be, and also market it to more people so that more people can receive this work. So that's why I'm going Kickstarter. So how to support? Share the Kickstarter so that more people are aware of that. And if you feel that this is a book, what we've been talking about is something, man, like I feel that this is where I'm at, that I would want to be a part of that. Or if you have someone that you feel, then financially back it, support it, because that's the only way that I'll be able to get to this hybrid publishing route, would be with your support as well.
I love that, man. I love that. So y'all heard the word, and we'll get that link for the Kickstarter, put it on the Substack for sure, so we can definitely support this good work. But bro, like it's been a joy and an honor to talk with you, man, and thank you for all that you do. Y'all who are watching and listening, make sure that y'all subscribe to BaddestChaplain.com. We're on Substack, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, any and everywhere you get podcasts. Also follow us on IG and TikTok and Facebook at Baddest Chaplain on all those platforms. But until next time, man, God bless and keep y'all. Much love, and we'll talk very, very soon. Take care.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.